Hi everyone, my name's Aley Waterman. I'm here today at the Rotary Arts Center in the beautiful Coleman's Theatre with my buddy Jerry Etienne, who is a professor of theatre arts as well as a director and actor at the Grenfell University and beyond in Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome, Jerry. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Aley.
Yeah, my pleasure. So we've been talking a little bit about your role kind of more generally in the theater program. You wear many hats. Do you want to just kind of introduce yourself and speak to this a little bit?
Sure. Well, I started at a very young age. No. Let me see. I'm an actor, I guess, first and foremost.
Okay. Cool.
I've been an actor for a very, very long time now. I'm not going to tell you how long because it's going to reveal my age, which nobody will ever know.
Never.
No, everybody knows. But so I started as an actor, and I was an actor for a lot of years, and then I came in the 90s to Corner Brook, and I started running theater in Newfoundland, Labrador, when we were a very tiny operation. Then we decided one year, Galen Buckle and I decided one year that maybe it'd be a good idea to do a summer program out in Gros Morne. And so we started the Gros Morne Theatre Festival, and part of the reason that we did that is connected to Grenfell, because part of the reason we did that is because the first year of the Grenfell Theatre program, the first graduates of the program, graduated and promptly left town.
Right.
And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have people who have been trained at this wonderful campus, trained in theater, stick around for a little while and maybe work for the professional theater company in town as maybe even just a jumping off point for their future endeavors. So we thought it would be a good idea to start a summer company of some sort. And then Daryl House in Cowhead came to see us and said, I've got an old laundromat if you want to have that. So we started. We started the Gros Morne Theatre Festival. First couple of years were pretty shaky, and then eventually Jeff Pitcher moved in as the artistic director, and he and Galen have taken it into a beautiful thing. But it was always kind of connected to Grenfell. So when I left that, then I went on and ran another theatre company in Nova Scotia called the Atlantic Theatre Festival. And then I came back to Newfoundland to teach at Grenfell because just after I stopped running the theatre company in Nova Scotia, I came and did a season in Cowhead at the Gros Morne Theatre Festival, and I noticed that there were an awful lot of students there that I had taught because I used to parachute in and do master classes at Grenfell for many years, and I thought, that's kind of neat.
That's really
so
cool,
I thought, maybe I'll seriously consider coming in and doing this full time. So I did. I went and got my master's at after not being in theater for something like 30 years, or not being in school for something like 30 years. And I came back and I applied and I managed to get a job, and here I am teaching at Grenfell, and I'm the chair of the program here now for another, 8 months, 12 hours and 16 minutes.
You're not counting though.
I'm not counting. So I'm a chair there, and I teach various aspects of acting. I teach voice, I teach scene study, I teach monologue, all kinds of different things, a little bit about the business itself. Sometimes I teach directed studies, a course where the students kind of do their own independent projects right here at the RAC.
Yeah.
And I also direct a little bit there.
Wow, that's really impressive. I do want to ask you more about the Directed Studies program,
Sure.
But before I do that, I was wondering if you could speak to kind of the experience of all of those sort of ways of being involved with theater, the teaching, the directing, the acting, and if you can just talk like a little bit about not just only how you juggle all of that, but also how maybe the experience of starting as an actor has informed your teaching style or vice versa?
Well, I can tell you that things are a lot different today than they were when I started as an actor.
Yeah.
The world is a completely different place. I mean, we've had such a drastic change. Drastic is probably not a good word because it sounds negative. It's a very positive thing. I'm really happy that it's finally happening, but things are happening in the arts and in the world in general that, all I can say is it's about time.
Yeah.
You know, there have been many years where things have been going on in the world that people knew were going on and kind of knew were not right. And finally, things are beginning to change. So the theater world, because of that, has changed a great deal. So my past experience in theater does help me with to teach my students the basic skills that they're going to need to now express themselves as young actors. And that's kind of my philosophy now. I mean, when I first started teaching, I thought, I'm going to show you all the things that I know, and then you're going to be great actors. But that's not the way I think anymore. I think I can teach you the skills that you need to then share with the world your voice.
Right.
And your voice is going to make a difference. And that's what my goal is as a teacher right now, is to give my students the skills to be able to express themselves as clearly as they possibly can and get their ideas and their imaginations out there in a way that works in theater. That's
Absolutely.
clear.
Yeah, and so you feel like there's a stronger emphasis on sort of the voice and autonomy of the students that maybe lines up with some of the cultural realities and sort of awakening of certain issues today, which makes a lot of sense. It's great to hear that that's been brought into the program. Do you feel like within the sort of shift in the responsibility of the actors themselves or the students themselves that they're responding well to that, or how has that response been overall?
Well, I think they're happy with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would really like to see at Grenfell at some point a bit more student-driven work.
Right.
You know, I would like to give them more of a chance to do that because, you know, they come to an acting class and you know, we teach them these skills, which is great, but they only get really the one chance to really pick the kind of things they want to say and put them out there for the public. They only get really the one chance to do that, which is the directed studies course. But they do a bunch of productions as well, but we usually choose those productions.
Right.
So they're kind of in those productions, and it's training for them, you know. So we try to choose productions that they can grow from. You know, by being in these productions, they can grow, they can learn some basic things about the stage, they can, you know, all kinds of things that you can't really learn unless you do it. You can talk about it till you're blue in the face, and you can be in the rehearsal hall in an acting class and kind of do it in that very kind of protected, sheltered, safe space. But it becomes a completely different thing when you're working towards presenting this to an audience that's paying money. Right. And you have to really kind of focus and concentrate on getting it right if you can. Absolutely. Now, you know, it's a place to make mistakes too. I mean, I always say to my students, make as many mistakes as you can right now in these 4 years, because when you make mistakes when you're in the professional world, is probably going to be they're probably going to be more serious consequences than there will be right now.
Right. Of course.
But yeah, that's so I think they're enjoying it, and I think that it's working. Like I said, I would like to give them a chance to do more of their own stuff, though.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the directed studies and what's going to be happening here in the upcoming future, and how that relates to sort of the student involvement as well?
Sure. Well, for the past little while, I can't remember how many years now we've been doing it, but we do the directed studies projects here at the Rotary Arts Center. Now, I think,
Cool.
well, I mean, last year we couldn't do it anywhere, could we?
No.
But the year before that, and I think the year before that we were back in the theater, but then the year before that we were here. So I would like to give the students an opportunity to work in this space because it's a different space.
Right.
From time to time we do shows at the Arts and Culture Center, which is a different space again and different challenges. Our theater is a black box theater. The Arts and Culture Center is a proscenium type theater. And this is kind of a thrust type theater. And they all three of them have different challenges. I'll call them challenges, but it's really just different ways to go about performing in them.
Right.
So I think it's great that the students get a chance to work on 3 different kinds of stages. So we try to do the directed studies projects here at the Rotary Arts Center. The other thing that I like about doing them here is that that the public gets to see them.
Yeah.
And our students get to show the public kind of where their minds are and where their imaginations are and what they think is important and what they think is theater that they're interested in and what their interests are, right? Whereas the shows at Grenfell maybe more geared toward just giving the students training, but doesn't really give the students a chance to say, oh, this is what I think, right? These are the shows that I think are kind of cool and interesting, but when they come here and do these shows from directed studies, the public gets to come to a space that they all know. It's not on campus, right? So it's very accessible, right in the middle of town, and see our students work.
And so it's the work that the students choose to perform, or what?
Yeah, they have to do
the parameters of the.
They have to do about a 20 to 40 minute piece. It doesn't have to be a play. It can be an installation piece. It could be a dance piece. It could be a kind of an avant-garde kind of a thing.
That's awesome.
Whatever they would like, as long as it's a cohesive kind of a piece. They have to pitch it to the professor that's teaching them, and then they take it right from the beginning. Some of them write their own. They take it right from the beginning, which includes, who's going to be in this, who's going to do the tech for it, where am I going to get all the stuff I need for it, sometimes who's going to write it, how are we going to do this thing, and goes through all the steps to bring it to the audience.
Wow,
from page to stage, kind of.
That's so great. It's so great when within sort of the institution and academia, you're actually given the practical kind of life skills to bring something outside of that space. So it sounds like this is a great opportunity for students to do that, and also for people of Corner Brook and Newfoundland generally to come in and see new, exciting work, which I'm really excited about it. When are these happening?
It's directed studies happens December 3rd and 4th, I believe. It's the first weekend in December.
Okay.
Yeah, right here at the Rotary Arts Center.
Great.
Get your tickets now.
Get your tickets.
Tickets are free, by the way. There's no charge for this, but we do have a donation box, and all the donations that happen go to support the students who are going to Harlow that year. Nice. Which are the fourth-year students who are the people who are in charge of these shows.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, that sounds. I'll definitely be here. It sounds like it's going to be really fun. How many? Do you know how many pieces are being put off this year, or sort of the structure of the? It
varies each year. Oh, I'm probably going to get this wrong, Aley. I believe
generally
there are
kind of
7 this year. There might be 8.
Okay, so there's a few.
Yeah, I think it's 7 or 8. That's something like that. Kind of in that ballpark.
Okay.
7 or 8 shows.
In that range. Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds really fun. And you mentioned something's going to be happening late November as well. Can you tell me about?
Well, we have a show opening tonight.
It's opening tonight?
Yes. It's a show called Mojo by Jess Butterworth, who is just a fabulous writer from the UK.
That's awesome.
It's being done by the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year students, directed by Michael Waller, and designed by Vicky Marsden, Roy Robacek, and Renata Pohl, along with the students. And it opens tonight, and it should be a lot of fun. It's kind of a comedy, but can be kind of really dark.
Right.
Really dark, but there's a lot of laughs in it. So so I think people will enjoy that. So get out, get your tickets.
So that's tonight at the Grenfell.
At the Grenfell Theater, yes. Okay. And you can just show up at the box office the night of, or you can contact Grenfell. You can see on our website how to get some tickets.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a fun show.
That sounds wow.
It's the first time we've been live. First time we've been live in a year and a half. So for our students, this is huge because we've been doing online shows, and it's just not the same. It's just not the same. So they're very excited about this.
That's cool. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that as well. Sort of, this is one of the first moments in the last couple of years, really, where things are more freely being taken back to the stage, to the public, because of the pandemic, of course. Can you speak a little bit to how that shift is happening and sort of what it's shone light on in terms of the theater world?
Well, I think it's done a couple of things. It's sort of given us opened up a lot of new possibilities, because suddenly, we know how to Zoom and WebEx and whatever other, platform you want to use. So it's kind of opened up a lot of possibilities. For instance, while we were in the pandemic, heavily in the, we're still in it, but while everything was shut down, we discovered that we could do some courses online, and not only that, but we could bring in people from the rest of the country that we would never have been able to bring in, because they can't afford to be away from their work for that long, to come all the way to Newfoundland and rent a place and pay for the transportation and all that sort of stuff. So it became a bit easier to just Zoom somebody in from, say, Toronto or wherever. We also Zoomed people in from London, England.
Cool.
And we got some really interesting courses that we were able to give to the students because of that. Because we got to do a voiceover course with a voiceover coach that works in Toronto all of the time, and that's a whole new field that we really haven't touched on very much at Granville at all. We got another wonderful actress and director and producer, and also teacher in Toronto, who did an entire semester on Black playwrights. There aren't a whole lot of experts on Black playwrights in Newfoundland.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's great to be able to get somebody from out of province to come here without having to either pay the expense for that or have them pay the expense for all of that. So it just makes it a bit more accessible for us to get a more kind of diverse curriculum going when we can do it online. So that's a great thing. The not so great thing is that it's a completely different thing, really. Trying to teach students about live theater, acting students about live theater, when, well, I'll give you an example. We did a Commedia piece because we thought we were going to be live in January of last year. So we did a Commedia piece, and Commedia is very physical comedy, right? It's an Italian. It was done in Italy way back. So we started rehearsing it, and we were being very careful to, physically distance, wear masks, and we'd incorporated all of this into it. And then suddenly we had to go back online. So now we're doing a scene between two actors. One of them is in Corner Brook, and the other one is in St. John's. And they have to make some kind of physical contact. Like they have to share a prop or something like that. So we had to work out how to do that. But the toughest thing is that you have a scene where you're talking to somebody here, and the camera is here. So you're looking at an empty room and pretending that you're talking to somebody in it. That goes against everything that I try to teach actors about acting.
Wow.
Because it's easy for young actors that are starting out to think, I memorize my lines, I know how I'm going to say them, and I say them. But one of the biggest tricks to acting is listening and receiving what the other actor is giving you. That's how chemistry works, right? We talk about chemistry between actors. That works because one actor is talking to another actor, and that actor is really listening to them, and they hear what the other actor is saying, and they experience the emotion and the intentions and the thoughts and everything that the other actor is giving them, and then they respond to that.
Right, so they really fall into the role.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's hard to respond to that when you're staring at an empty room while the other person is talking to you, right? So, or you're looking at that little dot on the top of your laptop, the camera. So it was a very different kind of thing. And much more like film acting, you know, doing a close-up in a film or doing a cut in a film, you know, where you're not really talking to anybody. Sometimes you have somebody kind of there to focus on, but it's not the actual actor that you're talking to. You're pretending that that actor is there. So it's a completely kind of a different thing, and it's not usually the way that live theater works. So you usually have the person there,
Right.
you know.
Of course.
So it was that's a bit of a challenge. So I'm very, very glad that we're back now, and we can
Yeah.
actually start again to teach that stuff and get our actors actually talking to each other. And the technical side, I mean, it's a bit of a challenge to get somebody to use a chop saw or a jigsaw when they don't have a jigsaw in their hands.
Yeah.
You know.
Veers into the realm of
Yeah. So
miming.
when they're in their bedroom at home, because their parents are also working online in the living room and the kitchen, and you're trying to teach them this is how you cut with a I don't know what. I don't know. I'm not a technician. So, or this is how you hang a light. It all has to become kind of very theory based. So I'm sure that all the tech folks are very glad that we're back to hands-on as well.
Big time. I will say too that my friend and I I moved back here about a year ago from Toronto, and my friend came with me for a while. And one of the first things we did when we got back was we actually saw a play here, The Anger in Ernest and Ernestine.
Yes, that was one of our directed
right,
studies.
Okay, so that was one of the
plays.
directed studies plays. And my friend just burst into tears because we hadn't seen any, we hadn't been to a theater, we hadn't been to a show, we hadn't actually taken in any art other than through a screen in over a year, and we didn't know when we would again. And I felt really emotional about it as well. I mean, they might just be kind of a bit weepier than me as a person anyways, but I probably would have burst into tears as well. But it was just so impactful. The play was great, and just being around people, seeing it, it almost felt sort of otherworldly at that point because there'd been so little of that. Like I'd basically just seen my friend and one or two other people for about a year. So having people not only around, but also acting and engaging and revealing that sort of creative chemistry on the stage, it was just so moving. And I feel like, you know, despite all of the terrible sort of things that have happened through COVID, we've been reminded societally of the importance of the arts to kind of keep us afloat and keep spirits high. So, yeah, no, I'm really glad that the theater world is sort of kicking it back into high gear in terms of being able to involve the community again. How do you think, you've mentioned this idea of theater changing a little bit, maybe students taking on more of their own voice and the teachers being in place to more so guide them with the technical abilities, allowing the students to sort of take what's inside of them and bring that out into the world. I'm wondering about how that lines up with maybe the future of theater in Newfoundland and what we need here in terms of like the community involvement side of it as well. What do you see happening?
Oh boy, it's hard to predict, but
or sorry, I should reword that. What would you like to see?
Well, in the theater community in Newfoundland?
Yes.
Oh, great question. I would love to see more about what's going on in Newfoundland today.
Right.
Because for many, many, many years in Newfoundland, and I'm not saying this is not a good thing, this is a wonderful thing, and it's given Newfoundland, the arts in Newfoundland, its own very unique voice and character, which has served it very, very, very well. I mean, Newfoundland is a province that has I think the most unique province, Newfoundland and Quebec, the two most unique provinces in Canada, I think.
I agree. Yeah,
I grew up 100%. In
100%.
Saskatchewan. We don't have that same kind of connection to our heritage that Newfoundlanders do. And that's what a lot of theater from Newfoundland has been about in the past. That's kind of what what early Newfoundland theater writers like Michael Cook and oh my gosh, now my mind is going totally blank. I can't think of a single Newfoundland playwright. But that's kind of what they wrote about. They wrote about the people that they knew and the history that they knew, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But that has changed now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been changing for quite some time, but we've kind of been staying with those old classics. I'll call them, I don't know if you can actually call them classics, but that same sort of Newfoundland kind of theater. Newfoundland's a different place now,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have computers now.
Yeah.
We're global. I mean, we have people coming to our province from all over the world. And now that has been happening in the past as well, but it hasn't really been acknowledged very much. But we're becoming much more aware now of how many different ways of life and different cultures and backgrounds there are in Newfoundland.
Yeah.
You know, we kind of think about Newfoundland history and we think Irish, British, and Scottish, and maybe a little Welsh, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically the people of Newfoundland, but that's not the case anymore. You know, we've become, there are people coming in from all over the world now, and their stories need to be told. And not only that, but those traditions of, you know, the small fishing community and that sort of thing. Kids are growing up now who are pretty savvy about the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they haven't been off the island or out of Labrador, but there's a link to the world now, you know, so they know a lot more. They're way smarter than I was when I was their age. They're so smart. And we got to start writing plays about that. We got to start dealing with that. And it's starting to happen. It really is. And I think that's where it's going to go. We're going to start to move into a new, well, I don't want to say a new era, but kind of a new era of plays coming from Newfoundland. And we have to start telling the stories of the people who are here now, I think.
Yeah, that's exciting, and I feel like that sort of happens and is happening and has been happening maybe for a bit longer in literature. Like, I think what they call, what you're talking about with plays that are about an older idea of Newfoundland but are being written today, what they call that in like the literary world is rotting dock poetry. So it's like a pretty strong emphasis on maybe outport communities that the writer isn't actually that familiar with, and maybe a deferral of the individual experience for this more romanticized experience that tourists might more readily like identify with Newfoundland. But now, you know, with writers like Michael Crummy and Lisa Moore and Eva Crocker, there is more writing that reflects a contemporary Newfoundland, sort of even contextualizing like Muskrat Falls and all of that, like the political backdrop that is present now is being reflected in some of my favorite books that have been written in the last few years. So I'd love to see that in the theater as well. I mean, I find you also you spend your time between Corner Brook and Cowhead, right? You live part-time, would you say, between the two? Maybe more in Corner Brook?
I have a little place in Cowhead that I absolutely love. It's called Julian's Island. You're all invited. It's my little piece of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so you know, if there is a position in Cowhead that's available, you know, and I have an opportunity to work up there, excellent, really, really wonderful. Yeah, I love it up there. It's a gorgeous place.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the theater sort of community there is really exciting. They have a new theater out there as well. I find the dialogue between sort of that theater world and the one in Corner Brook seems pretty strong. I don't know for sure. I'm less in the theater world than you are, but
yeah, I think so. I mean, the whole sort of mandate, I think, of the theater in Cowhead, the Grossmoron Theater Festival, is to tell our stories, tell the stories of Newfoundland. And I think, just judging from, I was in the company last year, and every year they have a workshop week, and they are looking at shows for the future that are about, you know, Newfoundland today. Mm-hmm. You know, so now I'm not saying, I just want to go back to that for just a second, because I'm not saying we should dismiss you know, all of that heritage, because that's really important. It's who we are,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
And I say we, I'm a come from away, but, you know, for people who grew
Same
up
thing.
here, it's who we are. So I don't want to. I don't think it's a healthy thing to just dismiss that and cut ties with anything from the past and just let's make the whole thing brand new. We learn from our past, and it's in us. It's like I said, who we are. So that's important too. but the people that are living in Newfoundland now are living in a very different world from the people who were living in Newfoundland, you know, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And we need to be reflecting that. And I think that Jeff and Galen up in Cowhead now are really thinking about that a lot, and trying to put together stories that really reflect things about Newfoundland today.
Great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. One of my last questions. So I'm wondering, sort of considering these different little theater pockets on the West Coast, we have this really great opportunity in Corner Brook where we've got, it's a small town, but we have this beautiful theater. We have this beautiful arts and culture center as well. And the Coleman's Theater is like my favorite. This is like my favorite little soft theater I've ever been in. It's beautiful. People know about it. There are regulars. They've acquired people who come here often. And then we have this gorgeous small university that has a focus in the arts. It also has a theater. I'm wondering if you could maybe promote one thing that might bring those two worlds a little bit closer together, like the kind of downtown creative core of Corner Brook and also the happenings in Grenfell. Maybe they are more amalgamated than in the theater world that I'm aware of, but what do you think? What, like, if you could, this is just more of a thought experiment than anything, but knowing what you know and being in the realm that you are in, what do you think could happen to sort of bring them further together?
I think there's a lot of possibility there.
Yeah.
But I think it all really hinges on giving the students the opportunity to do more of their own work,
Yeah.
student-driven work. I'd really like to see Grenfell move more in that direction. Trying to arrange something that's organized by the faculty and staff at Grenfell is very, very difficult because we're so busy.
Yeah,
I mean,
of
we
course.
never stop. It just there's try to put a meeting together at Grenfell. I dare you. It's like herding cats.
Yeah.
Because everybody is so busy, and it goes all the way through the summer. You know, you'd think, okay, well, after exams in April, the summer will be much more relaxed. Nope, people have projects that they're going to all across the island, all across the country, all around the world, and it's very difficult to get anybody together to do that kind of organization. If we could, you know, really start putting more and more and more emphasis on our students, because this place, to my understanding anyway, is all about young artists.
Absolutely,
Really giving young artists a venue to show their stuff and to hone their skills. And that's perfect for Grenfell. It's perfect. And things like, you know, Lonnie Patey was the student that directed the Anger in Ernest and Ernestine last year. That's great. I would love to see much more of that happening, where our students, when they graduate, say, okay, I'm not going to leave town. Here we are again, back to right at the beginning of this interview where I was talking about why the Grossmoor Theatre Festival started. If we can keep our students here and have them start developing their own work here, and, you know, students do want to do that. So I think there's a lot of potential. We just have to encourage it. We have to support it more and more and more, and really kind of get them to a point where they want to take that risk. They want to go, okay, I'm going to put on a play in Corner Brook. You know?
Absolutely,
Yeah. And I'm going to do it at the Rotary Arts Center because it's very reasonable to rehearse here and work here. It's a very intimate space, which is great. You know, and you can do lots of really interesting contemporary themes, and just, you know, show the world what young people are thinking and what they're, you know, what interests them and what they think is kind of cool, and maybe start getting young people coming to the theater. That would
Yeah.
be excellent as
That would be
well.
great,
You know,
yeah.
because theater has a kind of a reputation of, you know, somewhere between 50 and death. That's the people that go to see theater, between 50 and death. It would be nice to make that number more like between 18 and, well, all the way through.
Death, yeah.
And I think it's possible. I really do. So I really want to kind of push our students more and more and more to doing student-driven projects. Just last couple of years ago, we had some students who really took the initiative and they developed a program to bring Shakespeare into the schools, and they toured to a few schools.
Cool.
They also we had some students that developed a theater company called no, I can't remember what it's called. But they did the first show they did was called Punch Up,
Cool.
and there's kind of a comedy troupe now, and they've done a few shows here, and they were all great.
That's awesome.
Wonderful stuff, great laughs. So we need more of that. We need our students to take more initiative and get out into the public. And you know, that's got its problems too, because our students come from all over the country to study at Grenfell. So a lot of them want to go home when they're done their studies here. I guess the question is, how can we encourage them to stay here where they got their training and share their talents with us
Absolutely.
here in Corner Brook once they graduate?
Yeah, I think like being from here myself and leaving and coming back, when I left, it was so obvious to me how supportive and sort of community-oriented it is here, and it is actually quite, I wouldn't say easy, but possible to find the resources to try and make your art something that can expand and grow. Like there's a lot of funding here, there's access to space, there's sort of open-minded, inclusive audiences, and those things don't all exist everywhere, so I completely agree with you. I think that's definitely what
it's
needs
a great
to happen.
community. I mean, for a community of its size, there is so much going on in the arts, visual arts, music, dance, theater, all of them. Good productions, by the way, they're called good productions.
Good productions.
Just
That's
remembered.
awesome.
Yeah. So it's a very exciting place to be as far as the arts go. I mean, I can't think of another community that's got this much going on.
Totally, I agree. It's constant and it's
Mhm.
really exciting. No, so that's great. And I think just finally, like, I have lots I want to ask you, but is there anything that you would like to add, or sort of anything you want to say that hasn't been discussed yet in terms of the productions happening or the theater world generally, or any jokes you want to tell?
Well, I could plug our second production.
Please, yeah.
Our second production is a double bill.
Okay.
It's a play by Tennessee Williams called Confessional, and that is followed by a play by Michel Tremblay, a French-Canadian playwright, called Les Belles Sœurs.
Les Belles Sœurs.
And that is playing the last weekend and from the Wednesday to the Saturday of the last week in November, which I think, I'm cheating now, I'm looking down my little cheat sheet, 24th to the 27th of November.
It's gonna be
And
great.
it's directed by Lorne Party, who some of you might be familiar with. He's kind of from the area. He grew up in Labrador, but he's done a lot of work here in the past. And he's here as a guest director at Grenfell. And so that should be a great show to see as well.
I'm really excited to see those shows. Yeah, both of them. Oh, and I actually want to add one final thing, which is if you guys see this and you're ever at the bar in Cowhead on a Friday night, and there's a production going on that Jerry's involved with, there is karaoke. I've never seen someone do such an amazing duet as Jerry and Pam Gill do of the Meatloaf song. What's it called, please?
Oh,
Please.
Paradise by the Dashboard Light.
Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen them do it a couple of times. It's a piece of theater in itself. You guys should do that here for directed studies as one long extended piece, but
Curtain raiser,
just wanted
yes.
to plug that a
I'm
little
blushing just in case the color is not picking it up.
Thank you so much, Jerry, for being with us here today. Great talking to you. And yeah, I look forward to all the plays. So thanks.
Thanks, Aley.
Cool. Bye, guys. Thanks.